Hi, I'm Ted Haptegaber, founder and producer of Live Talks Los Angeles. Thanks for joining us. Since we started over a decade ago, we have brought you hundreds of conversations with storytellers, writers, actors, musicians, humorists, chefs, and thought leaders in business and science. You can watch and hear most of these in our YouTube channel and our podcast. For details, visit livetalksla.org. And now, here's the show you've tuned in to see.
Thank you. Hi.
Evening.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to our chat. I'm very excited to be here. I love this man sitting to my left. I've had the honor of doing his show out on the pier. What do you call that? What's it?
Friday Night Feast.
Friday Night Feast.
Yeah.
And we had so much fun, and I was thinking about how we did a curry. You actually have a curry section on this in this book.
Yeah, curries haven't really got to their natural place in America yet.
But you love a curry.
Yeah, I love a curry, yeah.
It's true, they haven't. They will.
It's like our version, it's like how much you love Mexican food. It's sort of like taste. But you know, that's the joy of food, right? Just traveling and trying new things.
Yeah, I mean, we were talking a little bit backstage, I think, just to let's start from the beginning.
Right. I mean, how early?
Jamie.
Are you talking about the conception?
We were talking a little bit about The Naked Chef, like how it all started, and I guess if I was to tune in, the first thing I would want to know right now is, where did your love of food come from? I'm sure you've talked about it a million times, but.
Well, I grew up in a pub restaurant in Essex in the UK, and I didn't know that it wasn't normal, but my dad was one of the early guys to start what we call now a gastropub. So a pub where you get a beer, but amazing food. And what does that mean? It means like a full brigade, 7 chefs on every shift, pastry made on site, butchery, fishmongery, like the whole thing, local food. So that was basically normal to me. And when I walked down the stairs in the morning, like instead of a front room or whatever you have, it was a wash up and a kitchen, a big kitchen. So
that sounds so fun.
Well, the thing is, like, all the fun was happening in the kitchen.
Yeah.
Like all the groovy guys, all the naughty conversations, like all the fun.
Yeah,
was
the
happening
cigarettes
there.
out the back.
Yeah. So it's and as a family business, like you had to do every single job. There was no job like beneath you, like everything. So,
Well, that's interesting. So you grew up in the food industry.
100%. And I started working from the age of 8 because I loved money. I loved like earning my own money. And my dad didn't ever give me like an allowance. It's like, you earn it. It was basically £1 an hour when I started off. And that's wicked. You work 8 hours, you get £8. And, in those days you could get penny sweets. That's 800 sweets. It's like, yeah.
So in your mind, you had no inclination to build like the Jamie Oliver empire.
Oh, God,
you
no.
just wanted to make great food, or did you want
No.
to entertain?
No,
did you want to create atmosphere?
No, that didn't come till later. I just loved the idea of being independent. And before the days of the internet, my mum used to have a catalogue, and we lived in the country. So if I wanted some cool like Puma Dallas, and like it was the whole breakdance era, and like Fila, Toshini, Rossini, like anyone of a certain age knows where I'm coming from. I just wanted to buy my own stuff. So
was breakdancing happening in England?
Yeah, in the middle of the country.
That's interesting.
The film Breakdance would come out. Look, I used to be part of the Claving Electro Breakers, and for real. And this is how sad it was. We'd watch the film, which was obviously an American film, and Turbo used to sort of do the head spin on his head. The whole I had a flat top. Do you remember they put a comb in your head with a spirit level and cut it?
I feel like you've had versions of flat tops your whole life. But mullets and flat tops.
My hair has been, if you ever get bored in life and you want to be uplifted and think about hope, then go Jamie Oliver hair, and go images, and just do that for 2 minutes. You'll laugh your head
I
off.
just like the image of you like breakdancing, then be like, all right, let's go get some curry.
No, but
Like, I'm gonna whip up.
it was worse than that. I had a rolled up. I had this much lino, you know, like kitchen floor lino.
Yeah.
So I'd carry it around, and we'd lay it down, and then you'd be like, beep, 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 beep. And but yeah, that was country life. We were simple people. But no, I think I did really badly at traditional education. I was dyslexic. I couldn't seem to, I think as a kid, secretly or not secretly, you just want a pat on the back. So I had real hard time with that. And the only time that my dad was really proud of me was when I cooked. So I thought, well, positive reinforcement, I'd keep cooking. And at about the age of 13, two of my best friends were like local gypsies. So you know what a gypsy is, they're travelers. And they were like two of my best mates. And I had a Cockney mate that was from the city. And we went out into the forest one day, and I'd cooked a packed lunch. And I know it sounds romantic and all that, and it's all the truth. It is the truth.
I want a 13-year-old who cooks a packed lunch.
I had a fully, like, because the pub would close at like 3 o'clock, so we'd like pack it out. And I remember my friend Guy, I had a smoke, I'd done a bunch of sandwiches. And they were kind of almost American quality. They were loaded, they were like combos. And I had one which was a bit posher, because we had a buffet. It was we had a smoked salmon, and nicely buttered, but I had a wedge of lemon. And I know it's really simple, but this kid had never tried the joy of salty, smoky, acidic, soft bread. And like, so he went to eat it. I went, stop, stop, stop. And he opened that up, and I squeezed it in, and he put it in his mouth, and I saw his eyes curl back. And like, there ain't no way he'd ever eaten anything like that before. And then I know it's really romantic, I swear it's the truth, I knew that food was like really powerful. And you know the score, when you put a little chili on something and you get a crunch and something soft, and I'm like, yeah, I quite like this thing.
It also for me, because you know, I as a hobby, I love to cook and bake. But when you watch, it's almost like it is the most satisfying offering, because when you see people enjoying it, and you see how it changes their attitude, or it changes the environment. It's like, it's just the best.
I agree, and actually, those emotions and what's happened to all of us in the last 2 years.
Yeah.
You know, it's very rare that we've, you know, sometimes when you talk about things or you're chatting to interviewers, like you're talking about a unique experience that affected you that you might or might not care about. But we've all been through it, right? So I think in a way the theories in the book, and actually the word together, it doesn't mean the same thing as it did 2 years ago. It means everyone, like, to be told you can't see your family, to be told it's illegal, you know, to miss out on Thanksgiving or Christmas or birthdays. I mean, we had 2 18th birthdays from my kids. You know, what do they want to do? They want to party with their mates. Nah.
Not
you know,
this year.
there's going to be a big 21st. But do you know what I mean? So I think for me as a chef and a communicator for the last 22 years, it's been an awful 2 years, but also fascinating. You know, Britain well, I know for a fact, because obviously I work around the world, everyone's been cooking in different ways, and of course we saw the sourdough baking thing.
What a trend. I have to say, I didn't get into that one.
Well, it's, you know,
it's a lot. It takes, I mean, when you have 3 kids and a baby, like watching your starter every 3 hours is not my favorite.
Yeah, I think that's potentially more advanced, but in a way it wants to be done every day. So you have to have that life that will allow you to feed the mother.
Yes.
You know, the starter, sorry.
I feel like also one of the things that we all enjoyed, I know for me, I follow you on Instagram, and it was actually watching everybody go into their home and see their kitchens.
Yeah.
Especially people that we love, like yourself. You know, we see you outside, we see you in different environments, we see you in your restaurants, but we never really get to see you at home with your family. And then off of that, to have this book, I was checking it out, obviously being here and doing my research. What I love about what you did here is it is kind of, you know, we did have that moment where if we had the ability to create, if you have big families as we do, there were those moments where it was like, okay, there was a lot of anxiety, a lot of fear, a lot of uncertainty. And the one thing that kept things together was actually sitting down and connecting over food.
It was the one thing you could control.
Yeah. And it was a very special thing. I think it made a lot of people go, oh, this is an actually special time. This is a time that we can create things that are a little more fun.
And I also think through vulnerability, because like I remember, like I didn't really believe it was going to happen. I just thought, nah. And then on the Friday, they're like, we're locking down on Monday. And I was by chance filming. So I just said to the crew that I'd known for many years, should we just not go home? Let's make up a series now, like non-commissioned. So we rattled out 5 shows to strip across the week. It wasn't even commissioned. So we were the first non-news broadcast to make and broadcast bespoke lockdown content. Yeah, and we locked down on the Monday, and it went out primetime Monday. And it was so funny because the channel was trying to get 1 hour specials, and I'm like, no, we're doing 1 hour across the week. And they're like, no, we don't want that. I said, well, I'm making it anyway, and I'll post it wherever. I don't need you. So they kind of caught up with me, but it was really interesting because it's the first time. I had to go from teaching recipes to teaching principles, and by then we were already running out in the UK of like flour and eggs and like weird
toilet
stuff.
paper.
Yeah, what was the toilet paper thing?
I mean, just a thing.
It was but there's but yeah, I mean, there's some philosopher, I don't even know what he said, but it was something like it only takes 4 days for anarchy, and like, you know, take away food, water, and
that's right.
And so you saw people behaving very strangely, but for me, I think the public wanted just to see a familiar face say it's going to be all right, and you might not have this or this, but actually we can all make like a killer lasagna, or you know, so we did a month of that.
I mean, a part of me wishes I was locked down with your family.
Well, we would have
for
loved
that
to have
very
you.
reason.
Yeah.
When you said something, it made me think. You know, there is two kinds of people. I mean, there's more than 2 kinds of people. But there were the people who didn't think lockdown was going to happen. Then there were people like me that were like, it's going to happen.
Yeah.
You know, and like, you know, the preppers of the world.
Yeah. But you know, it was beautiful because I was doing it with my family.
Yeah.
But I nearly threw the towel in twice. Like my littlest kid, 5-year-old River, like he nearly broke me. Like I nearly I quit. Like, I mean, not just now, forever. Like I give up. Because the turnaround of this content was at 16 hours. Which for TV is very quick.
That is wild.
For social media, it's nothing, but for TV, that's I'd be like the final bit of. I was responsible for a show every day, and the final bit, which I had to get non-negotiable. River was just going, I hate it. It's disgusting, and I'm like, he's only 5, but he was just like breaking me, and then he kind of like did this thing where every day he said with absolute passion how much he hated my food. But then as soon as he put it in his mouth, he started to love it. So I started to realize this is his game. You know, he's like trying to break me, and he nearly did twice.
Now, okay, I have a great question about this. Like, so if all of your kids, because you've got, what 19, 5.
Yeah. A large collection.
A very large collection.
Yeah. And I never thought that would happen either.
And you span, very, very few people span like my family. Like we span 18 to 3. So we're in the same kind of eating habits.
Yeah.
Being a chef with 1,000 children, do they all have different eating habits?
Yeah.
And so of all of your kids, who has the relationship to food that is like your dream, like who's your foodie?
Okay, probably River, but he just like tells me it's disgusting and then likes it. So like I've had to work, but I mean he seems to like he gets into sort of like the flavors and the textures, and you can just tell it. You can tell by the clean plate. I mean, the clean plate is kind of the truth, right?
Yeah.
And then Buddy is my other little boy. He's like 11, and he's a dear soul, and he cooks quite a lot with me as well. And we have this little thing where we're trying to get a kid from every country in the world to put forward a recipe. We have this little thing on Instagram called Cooking Buddies. And he's so cute, he started when he was 8, and he was like filleting a mackerel and showing people how to make crispy skin mackerel, and then it's just beautiful. And then like your little pasta dishes, like really simple stuff. Like,
Yeah.
But
they're good. They're the
there's
good
nothing that
eaters.
makes me more happy than seeing kids cook.
Yeah.
And I think, and this particular generation of parents, you know, understandably, like we're scared that they're going to hurt themselves. So as a parent, there's always that grey line, you know, between what's okay.
Which
and
knife
what's,
do we give
You know,
them?
you got a kid jumping off a massive ramp on a BMX, that's all right. But then, like, you know, making a poached egg, ooh, you know. So it was like, you know, and even, you know, I don't know if you ever saw me when I did Food Revolution for ABC, but like, you know, I was living in the most unhealthy town in America. And when we started to reintroduce the proper food,
Which I loved this.
you needed a knife and fork because everything else was handheld. And like all the girls ganged up on me and said, "You would give a kid a knife and a fork?" And I'm like, yeah, they've got scissors in the classroom. It's all right. Like, we're going to make sure they're all right. Like, nothing bad's going to happen. But it's sort of danger is always in the eye of the beholder, I guess.
One of the things I've loved about your career is watching how, yes, the world fell in love with you as the naked chef, and then you've built this empire, but you've always been very honest about the ups and downs of your business, your career. And I guess my biggest thing is what haven't you done that you want to do? I mean, we're going to get into the book in a second, but do you have a bucket list in terms of what you want to create?
I mean, like if you're asking what would my dream be, I mean, if I had a dream, it would be that every 16-year-old kid would leave high school, you know, knowing 10 recipes to save their life, knowing the basics of nutrition, where food comes from and how it affects their body, and can budget, you know, because here's the thing, like the kind of, you know, it's a slightly Anglo-American media thing that like you have to be rich to eat well. And I can tell you that I've never learned anything interesting from anyone rich. No way, Jose. Like the best food has always come from the poorest communities. But the secret ingredient, well, is two things. It's access, first and foremost, you know, where you've got food deserts and stuff like that, and knowledge. So like knowledge is the currency, and access is the thing that makes it possible. But I think, I know it's really that simple, but I just think that we all want our kids to learn a bunch of stuff. You know, you could do a survey with, you know, American parents. I think they'd all vote for it, by the way. Like, who wants to have a kid that can't nourish themselves and cook by 16? I mean, you want to be able to say, if I left you, would it be all right? But I think it's deeper than that. I think when we're talking about things like environment, because pretty much what like the body needs is the same as what the planet needs.
1,000%.
So I think that
I
would love to achieve that, but I have a feeling. I mean, just like in America, education does need reforming quite a lot, and I think so. I think it would be amazing.
I think that's also in our lifetime. You know, I always say, like, you know, there are things that can be achievable. It's kind of wild, isn't it, that it hasn't been achieved? Like, you kind of look at it like, how is this actually? How have we not? You know, and it all comes down to money. But like you said, you could figure it out.
Yeah,
I think it's actually effort.
Yeah.
You know,
part of my job, which I don't really ever share with anyone, so about 7 years ago, I went back. Well, I did really badly at school, but 7 years ago, I went to university and I studied nutritional science, and then you have to study like public studies. I won the Harvard Cup, which is an award they give for public health every year.
Oh, that's so exciting.
So I have this incredible. So my job is to track public health and look at it from a country, a district, the world, and you know, I think we know that, you know, if you're poorer, you do less well at school, you're less productive, you cost the state more, you die about 10 to 11 years younger than your rich counterpart or your wealthy counterpart. So I think from my point of view, like no one's ever said, look, if you don't do your geography homework, you're going to die 11 years younger. Do you know what I mean? So it, like, conversely, it's kind of like, well, you know, but also, like, can you imagine, like, what a joyful thing for America to even rediscover itself, than to the regionality of American cooking, and we, you know, we all know the kind of America really is the greatest hits of the world, isn't it? All the people that, you know, have the melting pot of the cultures and the food. So I'm obviously biased, by the way. But I love the idea of cooking being important and not a luxury, you know, and more of a necessity.
I think that the more that we actually do have that with our families, I mean, you're a perfect example of it, it does start at home. You know, all of these things start at home. And if they can't start at home, they have to be in the schools.
But I think that's why, because I've got 3 girls, right? I'm quite, I think, a constructive feminist, I would say. Like, I think, I can only talk from a British point of view, but like, if you just track what's happened in just 40 years, there's an awful lot expected of our girls, and they're taxed the same as men. You know, they've all been sent to work. Like, all the black money that used to be kind of out there is now on cards. So like, there's a load more money in the system. The girls have gone to work, and there's been nothing by the government put back for the gaps. You know, so I think it's public service to arm mums and dads' kids with this. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
like
1,000%.
Most of my staff are women, right? So we're 85% girls. We're like a team of 140 people back at the ranch, right? And I try my best to be a good boss and to, you know, maternity cover, you know, we do 6 months full pay, sort of maternity, you know, holidays, the whole thing. We try the theory, and we don't like, you don't have to turn up at 9 and leave at 5. You get the job done. Do you know what I mean? Particularly, I mean, with anyone, but particularly with women. Like, they don't need to be, they'll work for me on Sunday nights if they want to, because they want to, because they care about what we're doing together, not because they turn up at 9 and leave at 5, you know? Yeah. So I think people need flexibility, but it is it wasn't that long ago. It was like 70 years ago when we were all cooking on like coal or oil or wood, you know, like the idea of an oven, you know, that's so new. And so I think
we're learning.
But what's interesting is like technology now, as opposed to gas, electricity, ovens, and now it's phones and tech. So it's almost like another industrial revolution, but it's not industrial, it's technical. So
except we need to bring the food back into the home. The other thing is what about, do you get into, you know, I know my brother, for instance, has been very into like, you're talking about coal. He's been actually very into cooking on like wood fires and like doing it old school, you know, 8-hour meats. And do you ever get into stuff like that at home?
Yeah, I mean, we had a restaurant for 12 years that was just only powered by wood.
Really?
Yeah, and it's quite a primal thing, and doing it properly and doing it in a way that's sustainable and working with the forestry and, you know, and sort of seasoning the wood so it didn't, you know, so it wasn't, so you could essentially output a carbon neutral restaurant. I mean, like, but cooking over dry heat with different fruit woods, fast or slow, is a thing of joy, even in ash. Yeah. To take root vegetables and cook them in ash, like, and then peel them and dress them with like delicious bright light things.
I love the way you talk about food. Isn't it so fun when he's talking? It does. It's like we were talking about food porn backstage. Like, it's a real thing, but then you add the like actual the way you're describing it, and you're just like, oh.
But it's just so exciting. I mean, like I did a salad the other day where I just put a load of like crunchy root veg, like standard stuff, like radishes, carrots, whatever.
More.
I put it in I just smashed the hell out of it, broke it, like, all unusual size, small bits, and then I dressed it. And the way, because you like taking all the natural sugars out, like it tasted completely different than if you shaved it or sliced it. So I know it's geeky, but like,
it's not geeky.
Even
it's
a potato,
hot.
man, like mashed potato, fried potato, roast potato, it's still potato, but they all taste different. And I think that's the joyful thing of cooking.
What is your favorite, like, you know, go-to? Meaning, like, if you were to say, if I was to do a desert island Jamie Oliver, what would you bring?
Oh, am I living on the island?
You're going to the island, and you can only bring, let's say, a certain type of food.
Okay, well, I take a load of seeds, because that's like cheating, and I get a whole bunch of stuff.
Okay.
I definitely take a chicken, because like you got chicken and eggs and like, you know,
okay.
All that stuff. Lemons, citrus, you know, I like my lemon. And also chilies. I do like chilies, I'm afraid to say. Like, it doesn't have to be hot, but I love, you know,
You have a great like pickled pepper recipe in here.
Yeah, I love a pickle too. I love a pickle.
I love a pickle.
And I like the way the
love
pickle
pickled
can
anything.
cut through, like fattiness and
Like putting a pickle, like actually, I think we had pickled onions on our curry.
yes, we did. Quick pickled.
Oh,
Yeah.
I can't even explain to you what this curry tastes like that we made. It was like, it was unbelievable.
Do you know that curry was inspired? So when I was like, I don't know, like 17 years ago, in chefing fraternity, we have a thing called a stage, which means you just go and work for free, basically. Like an internship, I guess. And I went and worked in this Southern Indian restaurant, and no one spoke English. And it didn't matter, because you got the language of cooking. And I worked there for 3 weeks, and it was unbelievable. Because obviously you grow up with your own thing. You know, I guess, roughly speaking, our food growing up was like French, English, a bit of Italian, but that was pretty much what it was. But then to go
into England,
into
you mean?
Yeah, in the UK.
I mean, it was interesting because our age group, it was sort of like, well, I think we're the same age group. I'm assuming we're in the same-ish generation.
Yeah.
I just found out I'm not a millennial and I'm not a Gen X. There's like another.
What are you?
Fuck if I know. It's like I don't know.
We'll find out.
I'll find out what it is, but it's like right in the gap. Anyway.
Well, maybe that's what we're right in the gap.
We're right in the gap. It's just it's it's the confusion of our life. This.
Well, we know what breakdancing is, so that's the problem.
That's definitely Gen
And a
X.
head spin and flat tops. Yeah.
So, wait, what was I saying? What was I going to say? What was I talking about? We were talking about
Well, I kind of
the
rudely-
curry and then what?
I rudely interrupted you, but
No,
we're
we were-
Gen X. You were talking about Gen.
We were talking about Gen X and then I totally lost my train of thought.
Well, I was going to tell you
curries.
that this curry place blew my mind because they didn't use any scales, and like when we're trained, many chefs around the world are still trained in a French regimental system, and
That's what I was gonna say.
like normally service starts at 6 o'clock, right, and it's 5:45, and there's nothing done, and this dude just rocks up. Indian dude, just rattles out different sized pans on this hot, and in 15 minutes flat, he made 27 curries, and the different sized pans corresponded to their normal popularity, and he'd have this wall of spices, which, you know, if you want to be like nutritional health, like spices are the most nutrient dense food on the planet by weight, but they have this capacity to have layers, and he just grab stuff and he'd be layering spices, some 1 shake, half a shake, 2 shake. It was like a dance, and I just sat there and went, oh. And sometimes, like I was in Palestine like a couple of years ago, and I was a bit frightened to go there because I believed what I read in the press and stuff. And I got there, and it was just the most amazing experience. And this 10-year-old kid was making this flatbread, and I wept.
Really?
Because I knew I could never do it. Like I tried, believe you me, I didn't say that easily. Like I tried for 45 minutes to get half as good as him, and obviously.
And it was amazing.
Do you know what? When you film in that region, you have to be, because when you're making cooking shows, the last thing you would ever want to do is upset anyone. So we were very, very sensitive in that area. And there was this poster next to this kid making the bread, and like we didn't know what it said, so we had a fixer, and it's like, dude, can you just please translate that, because we don't want to offend anyone. That's the last thing. This is about food, not politics, right? And he translated it, and he gave me this bit of paper, and it said, if you can't afford bread, please just take it. Do you know what I mean? Like,
yeah.
And that's when I start getting really. It's like, you know, that's what I love about food, right? And it's a very generous offering if you're vulnerable.
Yeah.
But also, even in American and English schools, we have the free school lunch system. So that's kind of important. But also, if you have to queue up and get a token off of a woman and look like that family, that, you know, just as far as getting bullied at school or feeling like an outside, you know. So there's ways of doing things.
I've always been very involved in, you know, any food charities. It's like my big thing. I'm the global ambassador for World Food Program, and you realize, like, when you get very involved in the world of food, how simple it is to help, but how hard it is to get the access into funds.
Yeah.
And that's like, we have the food. I think that's the most frustrating thing that we could probably talk about forever over like bottles of wine is like,
Well, it needs
we have the food.
It needs a rethink.
Yeah, it does. But let's talk about the book, because I kind of want to get into what inspired. I mean, we know what inspired this book. It was definitely being quarantined, being together. But I love the way that you formulated it, because you create. You know, you're actually building, evenings. Like you have real menus here.
Yeah. So in 22 years and 25 books, I've never written a book where there's a whole menu. And you don't have to stick to the whole menu, but there's something about the flow of putting a menu together, like what works with what.
Yeah.
And like how would you dress a table, and like drinks, nibbles. So I'd never done that before. And
look what I opened
you found a pickle.
I found the pickled peppers. I love it. And you know what, I was thinking about this, the entertainer in me and the person who likes to build, I'm one of those people, I love the flowers to look a certain way if you're cooking a certain thing. But I'm looking at these colors and everything, the way this book is styled, it's like, I just want this in my life. Like I want
thank you.
all, and you're so beautiful at making the simplest things look. I just want to show someone. I saw, actually, there are some pictures.
There are some pictures, I believe. That
I think they did, but there's a picture of just tomatoes. You did some tomatoes in here.
I think the tomatoes you're referring to. Tomatoes. I know, but I don't know what's the right one.
Look, they're tiny in there. You can't even see them, but they're
so the genius of that
beautiful.
Really is you just put them in the oven slightly lower for an hour, and then they just concentrate and give over this incredible sauce. And then literally, whether it's on toast, on a pizza, or on a bit of pasta, it's just heaven. But I mean, I think what's really interesting about this book and what it's saying is it's kind of opposite to what technology is saying. And actually, if you think about all the forces of food in your life, most of them are driven by convenience. And look, convenience is properly important, and we're busy and we're juggling. So in a way, the most uncommercial thing that I could do is that. Do you know what I mean? But I genuinely think that caring, I'm not saying you do it every week, but do you want to go out? Do you want to get a meal? Should we get a takeaway? Or do you want to come around mine and I'll cook a really special dinner for you?
Yes.
And you go there, and so I think but that's kind of the underdog these days.
It is, but you make it simple. Like you're not giving yourself enough credit here. Like I've been really looking at this. I can't wait to do it. You've made everything here is a version of something that we know anyone can do a lot of these things. This is not. You didn't make complicated recipes, but you made beautiful menus, which to me I think is not, of all of the books that I've seen and love to do, although this chocolate semi-Fredo might be a little more complex, but easy, simple.
It's kind of an interesting one, because there was a little mashup. When I was in Florence, they had this vanilla rice ice cream. So if you look at the ingredients, there's a tin of rice pudding in there.
Yeah.
And it gives the most amazing texture, but obviously chocolate. But semi-Fredo means semi-frozen, and that's the kind of, semi-Fredo is the easiest way you can make homemade ice cream, kinda, at home.
Without having it be a whole complicated process. But I love a recipe that has 5 ingredients and 1 page, Yeah.
Well, actually, in this book, I wrote it, I've never written a book in this manner, because what I learned in lockdown is, and that's why the subtext says memorable meals made easy. I realized that really look, of course I'm into food, but really the food's just an excuse to have a moment, to have a memory, a little bubble of joy, something you can reflect back on. And getting another takeaway is probably not going to create that memory, but giving a shite and making a table and dressing it and being bothered to get a couple of little flowers and that is going to be a memory. So I kind of, that was the intention of the book, really.
My kid said to me literally last week, I think it was, Mom, I kind of miss the early quarantine days. And I thought that was such and I totally understand it. And the reason why is that for some reason, you know, nobody was on their social media. It just felt like a time that people were more invested in like what was gonna help us be safe and simple things. And when we got around together to actually connect around food, which is when that happened the most. Except for me when I went crazy and was making all the kids clean the house. That was another time we all got together. But the food was really like where we talked about things. There was no phones, there was no, and it kind of set a tone for me about connectivity. And when you get into like understanding your wellness and longevity, and you know, the one thing I think people don't talk about enough is how important connectivity is to our wellness.
Yeah.
Like loneliness, which I love
Big
about
time.
the title of your book.
Well, I was lucky. I mean, to agree with what you said, like about 5 years ago, just after I went and studied nutrition, I also, in tandem, went all around the world, to the parts of the world where people live the longest.
Oh, the blue zone, the sort
Absolutely.
of blue zone areas.
And one of the pillars of that was connection, and it's actually friendship groups. So that they would have an average of 7 to 12 best friends, whereas normally in the States and the UK it's sort of like 4.
Yeah, and how do you build those connections, and what are they built upon?
Community, citizenship, I don't know.
Yeah, and how do you nurture them? And
some of it was through a faith, not a specific faith, but it was kind of interesting.
And also multi-generational homes.
Can I tell you a funny story about it?
Yes.
I was on the island of Ikaria. I mean, it's only funny because it's a bit saucy. But so you can look at longevity in different ways. Is it centenarian, so over 100, or is it like where's the largest proportion of 80-year-olds that are, you know,
kicking it?
You're kicking it.
Like having.
And it was on the island of Ikaria, which I went to, and the guy sat me down and said, "We did a survey of."
Is this in Greece?
Yeah, on a Greek island, and he goes, "We did a survey of of 80-year-olds, and 65% of them were still had sex regularly and successfully." So
that's a huge percentage.
I don't know what scientific measurement that was, but it's the end bit that I'm not sure what that means.
I want to know what the 40-year-olds were doing, because what if I
think they were like very virile on that island, and they would, it was.
I like that they had the energy, you know. It's almost like maybe that's what happens if you're healthy and you get older, is it?
Well, I want to see the university professors that are there measuring all of this data.
Yeah,
it's like, goddamn peeping Tom.
Yeah, how successful was it?
Yeah. Random side note, you know, just to mix up the conversation.
Exactly what are they eating?
Yeah. Well, they're interestingly with them, this is the kind of the excitement of nutrition, how badass it is. So they were eating a lot of wild greens, horta as they call it.
Yeah, horta.
So like, you know, or you might, like nonnas might be picking stinging nettles.
Off the side of the road.
Mountain side of the road, but also like, as opposed to, like in Britain, we water everything because we're gardening. But like when you stress a plant, you often get this like incredible nutritional content. The other cool thing was like, there's all these kind of nutrients in like thistly things that we can't digest or even would want to eat. But guess who does? The goats. And then when you have the goat's milk, do you know what I mean? So there's this whole kind of like,
I can't do goat's milk. That's a gag thing for me.
Yeah.
But I could do goat cheese.
Yeah.
Maybe that doesn't have the same nutrition.
No, it does.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
And then the feta cheese, goat's feta cheese.
Feta cheese is
or
great.
Sheep, you know. I just spent the longest time in Greece I've ever spent. I made a movie there, but I go there every year. I've been going every year for 15 years now. It's like.
So you love it.
And
they love you.
And I know, and I know horta. And actually, I've gone and like picked it in the morning.
There you go.
Yeah.
Do you have a basket?
Oh yeah, you do. Yeah, you go out in the morning.
A white dress?
Yeah. Oh, please, always.
Yeah.
Sometimes it's pink.
But was there a donkey?
Yes.
See?
So there's this other.
See how in tune we are.
Yeah. There's also. It's so funny because the donkey. There's places that actually you can't get things up, and they have donkeys, and because you can't get your car done, like especially certain tavernas and stuff. But I am it's also beans. I find that a lot of places in where the longevity is the longest, they do their local
legumes,
beans. Yeah, and not a lot of meat.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they often have meat, but just quality.
Yeah.
And obviously, it's really interesting. You see,
and they drink.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think that the scientists have said drinking lots is a really, but I think there's one or two. There might be a relaxation thing, which then goes on to the kind of not stress thing, which then has its own upside. But
and they walk.
They walk. Their life is just inconvenient enough, but also most of them also, to a point in their life, they grow. And actually, if you look at growing, certainly with older people, there's the crouching and the movements needed to tend are quite good flexibility.
Yeah,
sort of,
I love
yoga-esque, nothing like yoga, but you know what I mean, like sort of flexibility.
Yeah, no, but it makes sense. Also, just the connection to nature, like your hands in dirt, for your microbiome, all of it. It's just so good for you.
Be a bit more dirty.
We got to be more dirty.
See, my wife's very, very clean, like too clean. Like she's literally like John Wayne with kills 99% of all bacteria. Like and I mean, literally, if she had her way, she would have like a cattle dipping bath for me to go through at the end of a day's work. It's like, yep, he's clean. Kills 99% of all that. But she got COVID, man, and she got it bad.
She did.
Yeah, she's got long COVID now. Like I think that maybe a bit of dirt was helpful for your immune system. I don't know. We'll find out, won't we, in the next few years?
Well, I think so. But I think we
didn't stop her cleaning though.
We need to get dirty. Our kids' hands need to be in the dirt. We need that connection with nature.
She loved a vacuum cleaner as well.
See, you know what?
I was in
love
America.
A vacuum cleaner
I was in
too.
America once, and
I love a vacuum cleaner.
I don't know if this is normal or not, but
I love an iron.
The house was a vacuum machine. They had like downstairs where the washing machine was, they had this big thing that sucked. And then all the pipes went off to all the rooms. And instead of having like a vacuum cleaner, you just had the end and a tube and you just went, boom.
Wow.
And all of it goes down to a central place.
That's very fancy.
Am I living a different...
I've never heard of that, but it sounds very English.
No, the Brits would never do that.
Where
You'd
was
have to
it?
wind it up or something.
This was in America?
Yeah, this is where I saw it in America.
Where? Somebody's fancy
I
house?
can't remember, but I remember thinking, wow, if my wife saw this, I'd have to rip down my house and rebuild it again.
I'm just afraid my kid's arm will get stuck in the hole. Like,
yeah.
At one point, just like,
yeah.
You just hear, Mom,
yeah.
all the time. Okay, what is your number one, I know you don't want to do this, but give me the menu that if I was to be like, okay, I'm going to do a menu, like to really represent this book properly, what's the menu?
I think I would throw you down, I would probably throw you back into the realms of the curry night.
Really?
Yeah, because if you look at that spread, it's taking you on a holiday. That's the beauty of cooking. You can get a bit of chicken or a bit of fish or whatever you buy, and you can literally, with the joy of cooking, you can take it to a country and surprise yourself.
I mean, the fluffy coconut rice just does it for me immediately.
Well, people a lot stress about rice. Like, I can't cook rice, it's sticky, it's disgusting. So
cooking rice is a gift, isn't it? I mean, you really have to know how to cook rice.
Mate, so you get 1 mug of rice, basmati rice, pan, 2 of water, boil it, 12 minutes, switch it off. Perfect every time. Anyway, moving on, sorry. I'm really good company down the pub.
I mean,
this is why my wife loves me.
You don't fluff, you just keep it in there?
Fluff?
Like you don't fluff it with any? No, you don't touch it.
We're in LA now, aren't we? It's like, we were talking about food porn.
But I'm just wondering, do you do anything?
You do fluff, actually. You do fluff at the end.
Okay, so you give it
Not at the start. This is going the wrong way. But yes, you fluff it up nice and light.
Great.
And delicious.
And this is like the most beautiful looking spread. And this naan, simple or hard?
Okay, self-raising flour. So you get the bag and it's water and salt and that's it.
I mean, you say it like that.
Well, read the recipe. It's been print. I mean,
And when you're doing
I mean,
a
look
book
how
like
lovely
this,
that
because
naan. Don't tell me you wouldn't want that.
I'm telling you right now, I want
And
it.
then once it's off, I had to devise a method. Because obviously they're normally cooked in a tandoor, which is
I'm going to make this naan. I'm going to go home and I'm going to Instagram what my naan looks like versus this naan.
I reckon you're
I bet
a good cook.
I'm a pretty good cook.
Yeah. Look, so normally that's done in a tandoor where it's a really intense dry heat. Look at the method. So I developed a screaming hot pan. You put the naan in, and then you just put a little thimble of water and a lid, and it just goes.
Oh.
And then when it comes off, you just give it a little kiss of butter.
Beautiful. Oh my God, it's so fun. Should we look at some of this on the big screen? Let's go through some of the food porn.
Yeah, I don't know if they've. I mean, oh, look, it is working. So
Okay,
so in the book, what I did do was I tried to do. I didn't want you just to think like cooking for friends and family was just fancy stuff. So like from curry night to taco party to this was last minute feast, right? So literally, how can you go to a corner shop, grab some cheese, some olives, bits and pieces, and do kind of a big antipasti sort of number. But if you look through the chapters, there's all kinds of different meals.
You have some good, especially taco night. I loved the taco night. I loved some of the things that you put in the taco night. They're kind of different.
Yeah, I mean,
different take on it.
you guys do this much better than we do back home.
That is true.
But the way that we did it, because again, it's about getting ahead of the game. So you have that pork belly, you cook it the day before, and then you can slice it really thin, and it just goes really crisp. And then for when you got guests, you haven't got to be stressing doing different stuff. So yeah, I love a taco.
I love it. My dad tells me I should open. That's my thing. I do like a taco that is like my family always wants me to do.
Is it taco or taco?
I say taco, but you say taco.
Yeah.
And I say like massage, and you say massage.
Yeah.
Right. And I say
aluminium. Yeah.
Aluminium.
Aluminum. Where did that come from? See, it's really funny.
Look, I'm going to be honest. You are English. Like, you're probably saying it right.
Probably not. Probably not.
But then, what was the one that my ex says? My son's dad. He says it's like a different take. Say San Vicente.
What? What is that?
It's a street.
San Vicente.
No, but I said it. You have to read it. It's there's some things come out.
What I've noticed.
What?
In English, we say San Vicente.
I still don't know what she's talking about.
Well, that's actually Italian. She went Italian, which is. All right, let's do this next one, because this one looks beautiful. These are the salmon bellinis.
Oh, that's a nice one.
Now explain what the pink, yummy little.
That's just basically like a play on a remoulade or a slaw.
Okay.
So it's the simplest thing in the world. It's just, carrots, cabbage, beets, yogurt. You can put horseradish in there. Horseradish works really well with the smoked salmon. And then that is a 1 cup pancake, which is a fluffy. So let's just say it's 1 cup of self-raising flour, 1 egg, 1 mug of milk. But also, you put porridge oats in there. And the porridge oats work really, really well. It's just a plate. My kids went crazy for those, savory or sweet. But
it's
kind of it's a play on salmon and bellini.
There's that lemon you love. Now, where are you in the styling of this? Because is this like your wife? Is she very specific?
No,
do you like to style
I've only outed myself as being into picking flowers, and also I have a sewing machine and I fix socks.
You do?
I have a. Thank you very much, modern man.
I love it.
Thank you. I don't buy new socks. I fix the ones I've got. I can even prove it. I have a singer, but no, even more geeky. That plate, I worked with the potter to make that plate.
You did?
Yeah, but I just love everything. I can't help myself. So in lockdown, that potter, what I do is I get a bit of paper and then I tear it into the shape that I want the plate, and then I get a pencil and I draw what designs I want, and then I put it in the post, that thing called the post, not an email, the post.
Yeah.
And then the potter made it. I don't know, I just enjoy
You
it
should,
all.
the Post, you should go back to telegrams.
I'm not saying I'm normal. Yeah, telegram or fax. I just faxed it through. But look, I'm not saying I'm normal, but
I think that's very impressive. I'm glad I asked the question
No,
because
but
I don't think anyone would have ever known that.
I just love
Right, I think.
getting involved. I mean, even when it comes to the book, to be an author, I'm blessed. In my secondary school life, if you were not very bright, and I couldn't really read, I was dyslexic. In Britain at the time, I was put in a class called special needs. I mean, it's probably not even allowed to say that now, but that's what I did all of my secondary school life. I'm the second best-selling author in Britain, right? And and I don't say that lightly. I think, if anything, it gives us all hope. And it baffles me. You'd be amazed how many chefs don't write their own books or even turn up for the shoots. Mm-hmm. The paper, the font, the design, the photographer, everything, the end papers, the factory it's made in, the paper stock,
all of it.
The foil, the debossment, everything. And I just think that every book's different. But every single, and as a dyslexic, sort of, extra words can give you a lot, but you can take them away, and it can also simplify it. So it's that balance between indulgence, which can be self-indulgence, or vanity, or ego, and it's all good. There's no right or wrong.
Sometimes it's necessary.
Or really savor the white space, and the more white space, you just calm people down. So I feel blessed every year to be able to write and try and tell a story.
I actually had a great writing teacher, 'cause I love to write. The best advice I ever got about writing was just say what you're trying to say.
Yeah.
Stop trying to overcomplicate it. Just say what you're trying to say.
And sometimes you can say too much, right?
Yeah, and sometimes when you do, obviously all of it's an exercise. I'm with you, but I think I love what you're saying is, and I think that we all know this about you, anybody who's tuning in, who's excited about this, and people who aren't, will now know this. But you roll your sleeves up in everything you do, and I always have loved your philanthropic, focuses, and how you, in everything you're doing, you're giving back to. Your whole concept about taking care of young chefs and giving them opportunities to build their own restaurants, learn the ropes, taking them from different places where they don't necessarily can afford it, and everything you're doing and how you give back is so clear that you love everything, including the people that you.
I think it's growing up in a pub I wasn't born like
you're
that.
A people person.
But I think also growing up in a pub definitely gave me a very strong feeling of community, and I haven't seen anything as good as a pub actually anywhere.
I love a pub.
Do you know what I mean?
Told my son his 18th
restaurants
birthday.
are divisive.
It's a pub crawl.
Bars have their own. Pubs are at everyone.
Yeah.
And but also I think when I became an author, which I didn't expect, that it was very clear very early that my boss was not the publisher, it was not the broadcaster, anyone else you could think of, it was the public. So I learned that really early. And then the other thing is when you're in the public eye, you kind of have a fast forward. You get presented a lot of information and experiences, and it changes you. And it's not exclusive to people that are in the public eye, but when you see stuff that's not right, then you can use your platforms to try and right it. So,
I agree.
Yeah, I was never like this. Do you know what I mean? I was just totally normal, fairly average dude, but I did allow myself to go with the flow. And of course, traveling, I never thought I'd ever get to work in Australia or America. And I think if you look through the books throughout the last 20 years, you get little glimpses into that. Actually, one of my favorite books I've ever written was America.
Really?
Yeah, and hilariously, America didn't really want to see that book. No, I never. See, I like
a Brit talking about America.
Well, my American TV series was probably, at the time, was the most expensive cooking show I'd ever heard of.
Really?
Yeah, because it was to get a crew and the most precious ingredient is time in America and do it like I remember being 3 cook because I pay for it as well. I'm like, damn, this is never going to pay for itself, but it's good.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then when
But that was such an amazing concept and idea. I'm so glad you did that.
But then we put it into like distribution because I'm very lucky because the work we do goes to about 120 countries around the world. But then when you do a show about America, the only country that didn't want it was America. And it did come eventually, but it was in some distant cable channel that no one knew about. And I'm like, no, but dude, it's so good. Amazing characters and amazing food, but.
Well, you've gotten all this experience and you get to put into this, and then as you get older, I mean, as I understand too, it's like you know what you want and you can now do exactly always. This is such a creative process. It's like it should only really be coming from you. It's nice. You're clearly a roll up your sleeves.
I try to be, and I think, and not every book's got a home or a person that it will resonate with, and I hope this one makes people, in a life where convenience and speed. Like this is about, I mean, even if you look at how I did a version of like steak frites, right? Or steak and chips as we call it. Mm-hmm. Like just the way that, if you got 10 people coming around, that's like chaos to do all that. Mm-hmm. So just the way I approached that, I was quite proud of myself. I'm like, yeah, man, that's a wicked way to do it.
That's the hardest thing. Steaks to me is the hardest when you've got and keeping the fries hot.
Yeah, but I want the people cooking this to not be stressed. So it's all about getting ahead of the game.
I love that. I I feel like I'm trying to do that in every aspect of my life.
Well,
it's all about getting
COVID, COVID's completely changed everything about what I'm doing. Personally,
completely.
Yeah,
I think that we are all. I'm talking about me and my family, my immediate family. Like we're all just craving more creativity, like quality time. Nourishment.
Yeah.
Yeah, like
not
nourishing.
Just food.
No, yeah, like really,
What's the best way to do this thing called life?
Yeah, I have this whole philosophy, which is like, I don't understand. We are all gonna die. Like that is a reality for everybody. So while we're here, what are we doing? And we have to. Everybody's got to do what they got to do to survive, put the food on the table, and that's the first thing we should be doing.
Yeah, and I've tried to edit out wasted time.
Yeah, and
I'm like, dude, that's an hour and a half a day. Like that. No, I'm not doing that anymore. Like.
Yeah.
Just try to change.
It's true. I mean, how we connect and what we're creating. Sometimes it's like, why was, you do sometimes have to, this is where the selfish ego sometimes can be a good thing, which is, what am I doing here right now? How am I gonna give back? Like, what does that mean? And how much what is the actual goal? What are we trying to achieve just singularly in one life? And
I tell you what, without being simple, I think the one thing that we need to do with all of us is where the dollar gets spent on your food. After you've paid for your house, the second biggest expenditure of your life will be food. And what we struggle to get across to everyone is actually, if we work if we start to have a conversation and care about certain things, we are the ones that can change all the things that we're not happy with.
Yeah.
The companies won't do it.
Well, it's like wasting food. Where our food is coming from, where the seeds are coming from. All of these are all insanely.
And I can give you examples where stuff in certain countries just gets fixed.
Yeah.
Like move on to the next thing. So,
Like what? Give us one.
Okay, so like the icon of junk food, a burger, a Big Mac, McDonald's, right? So in the UK, we've been 100% free-range eggs in Mackie D's for 23 years. We've been 100% organic milk, yogurt, cream for 13 years. Our beef blend is high spec, and our pork is RSPCA Freedom Food, which is basically high welfare. So the only thing left to do, the coffee's even fair trade. So the only thing left to do is the chicken, and they can actually do the high welfare chicken. The only reason we can't is because of us, because we don't want what we should have in a nugget, which is brown meat. So they can't carcass balance. They can do, if we can go whole chicken, they can even take the only difference between you and my mob is the conversation. So in France and England, we have all of that, and then over here, they're like, oh, you can't do it. Of course you can.
Yeah, you can.
It's just the conversation and also the expectation. It's still a burger, it's still fast food, but it's, whether it's, ethics or this, that. So I think there can't be a better example of that, and that's just one. But of course, if you scatter that across all the brands and all the supermarkets, that's how we start cleaning up the act.
And like anything, like I always talk about, my phrase I use all the time is democratizing wellness. Wellness is such a key word, and I sometimes find that there's these sort of perfect ideas of how we're supposed to live and eat that aren't really realistic for
their Instagram feeds.
Right, it's like, it's just not realistic. So how do we not only make the change, but make it affordable, make it available for everybody?
Yeah.
I mean, you had your ugly vegetables, which I loved.
Yeah, wonky veg, yeah.
The wonky veggies.
But that's that.
But I love the conversation behind
that one
food.
thing is mega, because A, not everything looks the same. B, when you accept different shapes and sizes, it isn't just metaphorically like a good lesson for life in general, but also the price goes down.
Yeah, well,
and the waste goes down.
So many beautiful things happen. Beautiful things happen from food. It all really does.
But do you know what though? The reason people forget that it's the biggest industry on the planet. Like, it's bigger than arms, it's bigger than gold, it's bigger than oil. Like, it's the mother of all business, the biggest employer on the planet. So I guess therefore it wouldn't surprise us that there's a dark side.
There's a dark side. And that's to me, I know you've been so outspoken about it. I think it's just amazing that you are, because there's.
Well, I'll try and make a difference. I keep going.
You just keep going.
I do lay awake at night sometimes, going, "Why the bloody hell do I do that?" Because it doesn't get you any. It doesn't make life easier, but I do.
And it can be daunting, because you're sort of, it's like anything. It is. You are up against it. It is political. When these things become political, you're like, it really shouldn't be that way, but they are. When you're dealing with the kinds of things that that you've been up against for so many years.
We can do better, and we can have more fun.
Yeah.
And we can celebrate our unique cultures at the same time. It doesn't have to be a commiseration, it can be a celebration.
And get people excited about bringing it back home to the table, and making it a moment.
It's a really interesting thing. Like, we do studies on the poorest communities and what they buy, and convenience out-trumps price by quite a bit. So it's really interesting. So it's really important that we don't talk there's a lot we can do to help people. So if it's not the perfect meal, the kind of iconic perfect meal, and look, even this is not going to fix the things that we're talking about, and some of the sentiments of it, but there's definitely, if you're working 2-3 jobs and you've only got a certain amount of money, there's loads we can do to help you. So we know that convenience can still be much better and nourishing. So I think we just got to get clever.
You just got to keep and educating. It's all about, right? I mean, and it's funny, because you see something, you educate, and then there's so many other things that happen. It's like we just keep talking.
Got to keep going.
Yep.
But we got to get the governments to do their bits as well, which is always the fun bit. I've always enjoyed that bit.
Yeah, we know. Is there anything you want to share about the book that I haven't talked about? I know we have a lot of questions.
Have a flick through, have a little read, see if anything resonates with you. But I really, really hope that you create a memory, and a beautiful memory, and I hope it goes really well. I hope it's delicious, and I hope you get to laugh, and that. When we did the TV show, the show will go out on PBS over here. When you see the show, I really, really tried, like with the book, to give you something that was soulful. We had the best crew, amazing. Everything was just lit and filmed beautiful, and and like I split the series like I've never done before. So when you see me coming together with my family, it is the first time. It's like, so when we had the program commissioned, it was still illegal to have people around a house.
Oh,
So
really?
and
Oh,
with
yeah.
no exemption. So we made it by 3 days. And but also what I did was half of the guests in the series are my friends and family, wonderful. But the other half are complete strangers. So it's all the frontline workers. So teachers, volunteers,
that's so
doctors, surgeons, and that was like, and I knew, and we did a kind of way, we reached out to find those people, teams of people that had had like hellish years and a half, like serving us. But really, and even when you see it in the States, they knew, as I did, that it wasn't just about them, it was about all their colleagues. And not just in Britain, like around the world. So, you know, like we had junior doctors that had literally just graduated and been thrown into sort of 2 years of that. Midwives. Like this, and it wasn't like I wasn't bringing them in so we could sit there and say how hard it was or depressing. Like we all know that already, but it was more just to say thank you, love you, here's some great food, let me try and get you drunk, and let's have a great time. And but also, do you know what I mean? Like, it was good vibes.
Yeah. I mean, I think that this is when everybody gets this is what they're gonna, you know. I think you're creating the atmosphere, which I love. I mean, I'm looking at this. You got the picnic. It's like, it is romantic. I'm learning right now that you are quite a romantic.
Definitely.
Yeah. I mean,
get the tunes on, but lay the table, but making an effort. Like, when you make an effort, people notice.
Look how beautiful that is.
Lambs on
Your
that one.
pickled veg.
Yeah, I love pickled veg.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you knew that already.
Yeah, I know, yeah. Well, this is wonderful. Are we going to take any questions from
I'd love to take
the
questions
audience?
from the audience.
First question, can we talk about how bad British food used to be?
Wait a minute. That's what I was going to say about when we were talking about millennial and I got mixed up, was that we actually, our generation experienced really bad British food growing into this like amazing culinary.
I mean, look, I can try and give you the long or short answer. I mean, basically, we were guilty of some terrible food.
Terrible.
But it depends how far back you want to go. If you go really far back, then it gets amazing again. And it was, I mean, certainly every country has its moment. But we had a really early industrial revolution, which basically meant that we didn't have to cook anymore. The creation of brands, we never had brands before. Like, everyone started going to work, they didn't have time for all that business. So that's why you get Europe, which they had a much later industrial revolution. They were able to cling on to their wonderful cultures. We really did lose ours. So like, if you went to New Zealand or Australia, you would get a much more genuine British pie than in Britain.
Interesting.
Because it was like a little time capsule when they got on those boats and went and formed Australia and New Zealand. You know, like, Britain had changed. Do you know what I mean? So I mean, I guess what's the point of that story? Like, it only takes about 7 years to lose something. Like, use it or lose it. So, and
I think we're talking like 70s, 80s.
Yeah, it was terrible food.
Yeah, it was like creamy and not very, like,
it was confused.
It was confused.
Overcooked.
Yeah, and like you know, I remember I made a movie in Ireland. I was 19 years old. I know Ireland, but I was like in between like England and Ireland, and like I couldn't find a salad. I literally couldn't find a solid, like. Now it's like rocket is like everybody, you know, but
it's a beautiful weed.
Yes, it's a beautiful weed, and everywhere.
No, look,
it was, yeah.
I think we're struggling in England again now, and it might be reflective of over here. But now, like, we just can't afford the labour. What no one realises is it's really hard to make money out of restaurants.
Yeah.
Like, it's the worst. If you want to make money, it's the worst business to go into. I mean, I just love it, and I was born into it. But I mean, the rich always had great food, even back in the 70s. But mid-market and sort of good value, that when you start de-skilling the kitchen, which is, I mean, right now also we had Brexit as well. So like, all of our amazing grafters, they went home.
Yeah.
You know, they felt bad. We didn't treat them right, and they went home and voted Brexit. So now all of around the whole country, our kitchens are half-staffed.
Yeah.
So that's not good
for the
can't
food
be good.
industry,
That can't be
for the
good, no.
restaurant and bar industry. I would think that maybe in a couple years it's going to have this a sort of like reemergence of,
It'll have to change, I think.
you know, people just get wild and just go back to like
I think
the 80s.
I think small neighborhood family businesses, I'm
Yeah.
hoping will thrive. And
Well, we were talking about this too, like how do we build for the future, you know, where it's...
Well, the government need to sort of realize that not every business is equal. Like some businesses just create joy and magic. And I think often in the arts, which maybe you can include food. Do you know what I mean? Like
1000%.
you need, it's not just about culture, it's like you need to get a buzz on, right? And so like those businesses don't have great margins. Do you know what I mean? They don't. So if you want to have cool towns, then you've got to give them a break. Let them afford to sort of employ a few extra people and or even exist.
But to answer the person's question, what do you think changed for England? Like, when do you think that change happened?
It was all about me.
The naked chef.
It is interesting because I remember doing Letterman, and I think I
We
said
were
that
just talking about
I
it.
did Letterman pretty much every year for a long time, and I think the first 3 years I did him, he just smashed. I spent half my demo defending our terrible food, and then I kind of did an interview back home in the UK and said, I feel like the British ambassador for food. I'm just sticking up for it all the time. And then they turned that into a story about I thought I was the ambassador, and they, the press. But I don't know what changed really. I think the Brits on a good day. I think what's interesting about Britain, let's say compared to Europe, is because of that, we're quite open-minded. So if you go down an average town, like America, there's like 20, 30 cultures celebrated. And if you went down an Italian town, like that would probably not happen. So it's not one's better than the other, it's just they're different. So,
Yeah.
I mean, I like going to Italy because that's what they do, great Italian food. But, I think we're so blessed now. We have like incredible waves of Yemeni and Vietnamese and Korean. I mean, like,
Yeah, it's pretty
exciting.
amazing. You also, I think, have that great farm to table, in England, like when that started happening, I think that kind of also changed things a little bit for
Yeah.
me because you guys have very, very,
It's very wet.
It's very wet.
We can grow a lot of stuff
And
there.
when I was living in England, we had a farm in Devon, and I got to understand kind of the guidelines and how strict, the food regulations are in England.
Yeah, I think
Which is
that would probably make your average American quite livid if they knew, because
It's very strict.
There's hundreds of pesticides and herbicides that are banned in Europe and Britain because they, and they're still used here.
But I think that a lot of that changed during that time, and it made for, for some very good quality food.
Yeah, I think so. Hopefully, and long may it continue. But if you don't use it, you do lose it, and whether it's a service or a product or training young people. I mean, that was obviously something that you've got to pass the knowledge on to the next generation and help them flourish.
Of all of the chefs that you've met, and maybe this is one of the questions, I hope it's not, but of all of the chefs that you've met, who do you admire? Like, who's your most, sort of you look at and go, I just have a lot of respect for that chef?
For different reasons normally. I think René Redzepian from Noma is extraordinary, and obviously he's doing high end, but he's doing it so well. And you need, just like with art and music, you need to have extreme people pushing boundaries, and he's very technical. So he's been very good for the industry. My brain's not functioning, but the wonderful man from this country, got a restaurant in Washington, Kim, gone?
Jose.
Jose, thank you, sorry, forgive me. I think he's rather wonderful, and I met him a long, long time ago, and I love that he uses his platform to do the
Yeah.
wonderful work that he does.
Yeah.
There seems to be a lot more chefs doing wonderful things now, and I feel bad because I'm not an expert in that because I'm so bogged down in my own.
With your 5,000 children.
Yeah, my 5,000 children. But I think that chefs are able to do amazing things in the community.
Yeah.
And so yeah.
Cool.
Let's do a couple more questions. Gentleman says, I've seen Yotam Ottolenghi and Nigella Lawson here at Live Talks Los Angeles. Do you guys ever get together in England and taste each other's food?
Yeah, I've tried his food before. Very nice it was too. And obviously, did you say Nigella?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I love
And who
Nigella.
is the first one?
Nigella Lawson.
Joachim Ottolenghi.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I love Nigella, and she does her thing, and I think it's great. And I remember when I was working in the River Cafe, which is where I got discovered. It's a fantastic restaurant.
Oh, the River Cafe is the
Two
best.
amazing women that run that, and we change the menu twice a day, every day, 7 days a week. I remember way before Nigella ever did any TV or actually written a book, she walked in and everything stopped.
Really?
Yeah, it's just stunning. Like, no, I don't say that in a kind of like
No,
weird way. It's just everyone stopped. It's just like, all right. Well,
My ex had a major crush on Nigella. It was like a whole thing.
yeah, it's
Every time she was
and
on
it's like,
television, it was just
also,
like,
what's,
she's so beautiful.
what's funny about when you do TV chefy stuff, I mean, there's obviously many different styles of expressing it and documentaries and formats and stuff. But generally speaking, once you've cooked something, what have you got to do? You've got to eat it. And then when you eat it, you've got to explain it. And it's really important. and so, but she does it so well. And even when she drops it over herself, it's great, you know. But I really struggle with the eating bit because I can't make it. There's always a bit hanging off here, or it's never graceful or elegant at all. So I'm always jealous of her eating sequences because I know mine are just revolting.
Some people are elegant eaters and some are. I'm not a very elegant
I'm
eater.
enthusiastic.
I wish I was though sometimes. Like sometimes when I see myself in movies eating, I'm like, maybe I shouldn't have eaten like that.
That was quite a big, that's quite a big one.
Yeah. Like I just,
Smaller
I'm not.
bits.
Yeah. But fuck it, who cares? The other thing is, I was gonna say, who is the other English?
Chef?
No, the show, and she's just so
Mary Berry?
Yes.
Yeah, well, I mean, like, I couldn't love her anymore. I mean,
The best.
if she said jump, I'd jump.
Right?
You know, yeah, like
best.
anything. But it's lovely. I love those matriarchs of.
Oh yeah.
I mean,
It's so fun. It's so fun. Okay, what's the next question?
Next question, social media and food. The lady says, I'm torn. While I like looking at pictures in social media, I also find it very annoying when people take out their cameras in restaurants.
yeah.
Where do you
Oh,
stand
yeah.
on that?
That is kind of
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that person said. It's a tough one. I'm always finding myself being devil's advocate these days because, I mean, you know, yes, it's bloody annoying when people are taking pictures of stuff. At the same time, if it's going to be the new and the relevant medium to learn in the future, which sadly it probably will be, then that's fine. But like, I mean, it just sort of with my other, having billions of free crap recipes
Yeah.
is not going to make the world a better place. So I think like,
Yeah.
you know,
Though I
it's-
do find myself down like TikTok holes of like recipes.
TikTok's
stuff.
terrible for food, but it looks great.
But it's like I see it and you see it and they're like, you know,
Mate,
get your pot boiling water.
I
know,
mean, yeah,
I-
TikTok's got some, yeah.
It's all, everything looks easy, you know.
Yeah, but it's the algorithm that's dangerous. There's some really dark sides of this, by the way.
Of course, we all watch
and it'll all
social
come out
media.
in the next few years.
Terrible.
I'm telling you, but the construct of comparison used for better or not.
Right. Not good.
And if you're looking at like cohorts of young teenage girls and boys, like you're going to see statistics coming out in the next 2 years around algorithms and being served the same thing at specific times in their life, and you're going to correspond that directly to eating disorders and all kinds. I mean,
it's true.
It's not good, and that's why the government all governments need to control these things.
I'm with you on that.
And it's kind of, again, it's the dark. I mean, it could be marketing, it could be content. So again, it's sort of how we're being served information, and is it a Chinese whisper, and is it a trusted source?
No, well,
because also there's just for 1 second, like if you look at the internet, like there's two things that matter. If you get a recipe, is it a good one? So what does that mean? Like, does it actually work? Do you get from A to Z in a fairly straight line? So that's kind of important. But then if it's about choice and health, like if you're only being served really unhealthy stuff, that's not choice. You're just getting served. So if you put the two together, then you get people, if the consistency is bad, then people are going to cook something and be really upset that it didn't work out, and then maybe not do it again. And then if it did, then you're just cooking. Do you know what I mean? So I think there's like a
sort
whole
of. I'm
rabbit
sort of
hole.
following you. I feel like what you're saying is that the algorithm is dangerous because you're continuously being fed things
And there's not a standard.
that you don't realize you're
There's
being
not a standard.
fed.
So what does good look like?
The standard is what you're liking. And yeah, I mean, this is a very complicated and a totally different live talk.
Yeah, let's not go there.
Which I'm really happy to do because it's actually a subject I love.
It's all going to unfold in the next 5 years.
Of course, as everything does, I think. But
and parents are going to be furious that
which
they
is
never saw
why
it.
let's bring it back, because we got to land the plane right back into together. Which is why having moments
You're so professional.
screen-free without the phones at the table, without
I try to
having
police
these
that.
things.
That's hard, yeah.
Okay, so I've got. Does anybody care about what I do with the phones? I mean, maybe not. But what I do is I have a basket.
No.
And the basket, and I have to adhere to it, and Danny has to adhere to it, and the basket is in the front. And if someone needs to use their phone after a certain time, they have to go into the phone room. I mean, it's not really it's the living room, but go into the living room. But there's no phones when we're eating, when we're at the kitchen table, because.
But the more kids you have, the harder it is to police.
Yeah, but you've got your 18-year-old listening to things that's like totally inappropriate, and you find yourself yelling at them because the 3-year-old heard something that was on their TikTok, or like, it's a disaster.
But we're the first generation trying to work it out.
Basket. What?
We're the first generation of parents trying to work it out.
And if I knew what the damn name was of that gap, it would explain everything.
We're just the gap. So
someone's got to figure that out.
They'll work it out.
We're going to Google it. We're all going to Google it when we get out of here. Is there any other questions?
Let's do one more question. What do you think about engineered plant-based meats for cooking?
Oh, great question. I've got some. Oh.
Yeah, I mean, I being devil's advocate again, I think we have to. There is a requirement not just to eat more veggies and be fussier about the meat that we eat, but obviously farming can change to support that in better ways. And then when it comes to the question, which is what do I think about the highly processed non-meat products, I mean, I think you're going to get, as usual with anything, better or good and not so good versions of that. It'll never be able to sort itself out and be best or better unless they get to try stuff and people buy it. So it's going to take a few years, I think, to sort it out. I think it possibly might get quite interesting.
The plant-based meat?
Yeah, I mean, I would rather just eat plants and cook them nicely than eat something that's fake. But I think, but we know that's not how.
How do you feel about what's in the plant-based meat?
Well, I think with any recipe, it's good to have like the least amount of production and clean decks, as we call it. Clean decks means I don't really want to eat like NASA science lesson. I want to eat food.
I'm still kind of suspect about it.
Yeah, and I think so you should be, and I think it's healthy to be.
But I like the concept because I want to eat less meat. I'm more about how we are raising meat personally. About, someone said to me one time, which I thought, at first I was like, that's insane. But then I was like, actually, it's really interesting about having a license to eat meat. And I was like, I mean, very weird. I mean, very, But
Explain.
right, interesting
A license to-
concept, which was in order to eat meat, it's like getting a car license. You have to understand where the meat comes from, how it's raised, how it's killed, how it's skinned, how it's butchered, all of it, and then you can eat it. And I thought, oh my God, if you had people actually do that, we'd lose like most of the population would be like,
certainly would.
no, thank you.
Yeah.
You know, but we have this, we don't have like I grew up on a ranch in Colorado. You know, we had a farm in Devon. Like I grew up understanding, I had a very strong relationship to what meat really, like a relationship to the animals that were going to be fed to people. And it's a very different relationship than people who just have a burger and don't really understand what goes into it. You have a different connection to it.
For sure.
And a different kind of respect.
I think eating meat should be uncomfortable. Like, it's not supposed to be or easy.
No, yeah, I mean,
but that's. I mean, I think that's the interesting thing, though, is wherever you see countries progressing and coming out and developing, meat's always the first. Consumption of meat is always the first thing that goes up. So, you know, people. So I think. Look, I mean, I personally, like. As a family, we try and eat veggie, vegan, which I hate those titles, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, I just eat non-meat food, whatever, at least 2-3 times a week, at least.
That's what
and
we
we'll
do.
try and push it more.
Yeah.
And do it deliciously. And then when we eat meat and fish, which we do, just be super, it's easy to say that, but that's kind of where we got to go. And at the same time, you know, you want people to be aware like, of stuff and where it comes from. But I mean, you know, this is the country where we've developed most of the mass farming techniques that.
I think we talk about sustainability, and when you talk about sustainability, a huge part of that is food. You know what I mean? Like we should be eating within 100 miles radius of where we live. Like if you pinpointed us right now, 100 miles, like that is and you lived within that 100 miles, that is a fully sustainable.
For sure.
Right, and
but
so
geography. If you're in the Arctic, then they're going to be thanking you for that one. Do you know what I mean?
That's
like,
true. Look, there you can give some people need.
No,
some
I'm
help.
not. I'm just being.
But you know,
annoying.
I know, but you. But you know what I mean. What I mean by that is that
we can do better for local.
Right,
for
we
sure.
can support local.
Yeah.
You know, to understand where your meat comes from is actually a really amazing thing to know where your fruit is coming from or your vegetables, to have a relationship to the people. You know, it's actually it makes the experience, and I'm very spiritual in that way, it makes the experience of how we are nurturing and nourishing ourselves very different.
Absolutely. And but we if you go to France, they'll, you know, the things that tell you if something is of a quality and free range or not is the feet and the head.
Right.
So you'll get that in France.
Yeah.
And you can tell a lot by both, by the way.
Yeah.
But that in America and England, no way. You're like, that's off. It's in plastic. You don't even look like an animal.
Which is sort of strange, right? It's like, I don't want to know what I'm eating.
Yeah.
I
but
guess
out
the answer
of sight, out of mind. That's what pushes it. So.
Yeah.
But I think it's amazing that we're debating all these. I mean, certainly for me.
I love the conversation.
Like, so my business now is it's actually an American. We're a B Corp. So a B Corp means that we have to have people come into our business and not just look at the numbers, but actually the ethics, how we employ, like how do we justify what we do and what are the social benefits. It's a really fascinating concept, and if you don't know much about it, then look it up. It's quite interesting. But behind the scenes. Not that I need to, but part of my pledge to do my bit for the environment is I cannot output over a certain amount of meat recipes. So it ain't going to stop me like being creative, and I eat meat. Currently, I'm very happy doing it. I do it my way. But we are, as a business, as a broadcaster, and as a prolific broadcaster, you know, in many countries. We create a structure of pushing plant-based, even though I'm not.
I get it.
Do you know what I mean?
Yeah,
and I
it's
think
I think it's an important thing.
That's a healthy thing to do
I-
behind the scenes, and it gets all your teams fired up to go and discover all the things that are joyful about it.
I also personally think when you get a table filled with vegetables, it's like the most beautiful thing you could look at, eat. It like gets you excited,
Color. I mean, if you've ever been to Korea, it's like man, like you get all these different textures and colors, and then they still have in the meat, but it's just like boop, and then like prawns, boop, but there's just all this course, But do you know what I mean? And I think it's just making it fun, and you still want to have the textures and the flavor.
What was the craziest meal you've ever had where you were like, holy shit, this is crazy?
Crazy, like.
What is this is the best meal of my life.
Oh, well, that's much easier. That's just literally my mum's Sunday roast with the family, with all the trimmings. What more though? Come on, we're all. I think that.
I mean, I love my mom, but I wouldn't say that.
Oh, really?
No.
For me, it's not just the food; it's all the feelings that go with it and the memories. But I mean, obviously, I've been blessed to try some pretty amazing things over the year. I used to work in Japan and had some extraordinary things over there.
It's some of my favorite culinary experiences. Japan.
I've also had some pretty
pretty
hardcore things as well, which I don't.
Which is out there.
Yeah.
Yeah. But my man's Japanese American, and I'm trying to learn all of his grandmother's recipes. It's really interesting. That's something I'm trying to get more connected to. But going to Japan is some of the best.
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting because the whole world was kind of sharing and moving and exploring and fighting and doing all of that. But Japan kind of pretty much kept it they kept it down. Until the mid 18th century, so their culture and their rituals are kind of really pure. So I've loved. It blows my mind. Some of it looks very different. I'm like, well, am I going to like that? And that looks pretty. And then you eat and you're wow.
Yeah, and then some of it you're like,
yeah, what?
That was not.
Chicken
There's
sushi.
this one thing that's I forget. It's a very fermented bean. I forget what it's called.
Okay.
What? Oh, can't do it. I can't do natto.
If it was a pickle, I loved it.
No, you wouldn't. This is different. It's like me with Marmite. There's no way.
Right.
Yeah.
But it's. I think it's always. What I've found, which I think is a beautiful thing. If you love food, it doesn't matter if you can't speak the language.
Yeah.
They can tell if you're one of them by your eyes and your mms.
And then they just keep bringing it out.
Yeah,
which is my favorite. They know you're
because people love to make you happy with food. So
I have to say, some of my best meals were around, and actually very plant-based. You know what? My favorite meal ever was with my whole family, and we were at this masseria in Puglia, and everything came from their farm. All of the grappa, which added to the
grappa, wow!
I
never thought you were going to say that.
Yeah, but it was
like rocket fuel.
Oh, it was the best. But it was really homemade rocket fuel.
Yeah, so you drink it to be polite, and then they top it up again.
Yeah, it was great.
Yeah, no, that's
but
not.
they had different flavors of grappa from the farm, and everything, every vegetable, all the cheese, it was. And it was maybe one of the most spectacular family meals we had ever.
But isn't that but that's where, and I guess maybe comes back to the book, context is sort of everything.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? If you're a real food lover, it doesn't have to be a fillet steak to win the race.
No.
It could be beans on toast, but it has to be the thing.
There was an egg, it wasn't an egg, eggplant and pepper that was sort of roasted, and they took it off of the skin, skinned, and in this olive oil. That's it. Just a simple pepper.
Smoky though. Smoky. I love it when you burn aubergine like that.
Oh, and I remember eating these, and I was just like, what is happening right now?
Yeah, but that's.
So, yeah.
I think we're a bit weird, aren't we?
Yeah, are we weird? I bet everybody here is as weird as we are.
They're going to go home. They're going to get some nice food on the way home.
Are there any other questions?
That's it.
Well,
anybody else out there, do you want to ask anything?
Well, there's a young lady over there.
I don't want to ask anything. I just want to say we went to your restaurant in Cornwall for our 50th birthday. Fantastic.
Oh, thank you. 15 Cornwall. Thank you for
15
going.
Cornwall. You know
That's a
what's-
long way away.
You know what's so crazy? I went to 15 Cornwall as well, and I had one of the most insane conversations. I was like yelling at people at the parking lot.
Yeah.
And then I walked in there and it was so crazy crowded. I was like, where are we? And it was your restaurant. I had the same amazing experience.
Well, I can tell you a weird story about that, right? So when I opened that, so that was my 15 restaurant. So we took kids that were from prison in that area.
Amazing.
We trained them up. Everything was from 20 miles around, and there's nothing. Whatnot is a charity. So I never took a wage. It's like what's not to love. And Cornwall is the little skinny bit of the UK, but they actually have their own terrorist group, and it's a very small one now, but it is a legit one, and they want to have independence.
Oh.
So because I'm from London or Essex, when we opened up this incredible restaurant that was like helping young kids, yada yada yada, I had all these death threats come through.
Oh.
So then we gave it to Scotland Yard, which is our kind of like police force, and they're not very good at doing what they do because they'd lick the stamp, right? So this is like 15 years ago. Anyway, long story. So when I opened my restaurant, my family have come, mother-in-law's come, and you've been there, right? Like I had a bomb squad. Who opens a restaurant to a bomb squad?
Wait, what?
So I had Kate, we had the mirrors, the dogs, a bomb squad. Because
Oh,
I'd
wow.
had death threats saying, we're going to blow you up, you bloody Londoners coming down to Cornwall, taking all of our jobs. It's like, oh, okay. So anyway, the end of the story is quite a sweet one. The name I found out later, the name Oliver, I'm like, well, where does Oliver come from? And the name I found out comes from a little village in Cornwall called Olverton. And if you came from Olverton, you're an Olver. And so I've got 600 years of Olivers in Cornwall, and I never knew it until after the terrorist group that were fighting for Cornwall wanted to kick me out for opening a charity.
Oh my God.
But the end of the story is the guy that wrote the death threat, who licked the stamp, got done for a crime 2 years later, and the genetics all mixed up. And he was only first generation Cornish.
Oh, really?
So I don't know what the moral to the story is.
I thought you were going to say you were related. I was going to be like,
no, that would have been a much better story. But I mean, it's a random story. But
Did you say Oliver?
Olver.
Olver, because that's how I used to call my brother Oliver.
Yeah.
That was how I used to pronounce Oliver.
But then when the Normans invaded that part back in the day, and they had funny accents, so they said Olivier, Oliver.
Bien sûr.
So that's how it all works. But anyway, random story. But I'm thanking you for coming to 15 and contributing to those fine young people that graduated. And
Well,
and my mother-in-law was incredibly not impressed with a bomb squad.
Oh my God! Wait, I'm
to the opening of her son-in-law's restaurant. I don't know anyone else that's done a restaurant opening with a bomb squad. Do you? It's just not
That
normal.
is kind of insane. It's a
Yeah.
little bit uneasy. It's immediately uneasy. But if you don't know this, it's on the wall. It's on the cliff. So it's really beautiful. I mean, the restaurant. It's not still. It's not.
No, we lost it last year, sort of when all the restaurants went. But
Yeah.
we will endeavour to bring it back one day. And
Do you have that property? Is that property
no,
gone now?
we'll start again. It's okay.
Yeah.
We can move on and we'll start again. And I'm gonna endeavour to do 15.2 next year.
Oh, nice.
And it will be very different. But I'm very excited about it, and
Well, I'm excited.
It's hopefully we're going to get the students to open their own restaurants and try and do multiple sites. So same thing but different.
I love
So
that.
fingers crossed.
Yeah, that would be amazing.
I should thank them really for coming, shouldn't I?
Yes, you
I
should.
mean,
I'd like to thank you as well.
Oh, thank you.
But they're
thank
here
you
really-
for looking after me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I hope I got everything. I hope we covered everything.
I think we did cover everything.
And thank you for having me. And I mean, Jamie Oliver, you guys.
Thank you.